Evening begins to settle, the sun lowering into amber and rose, and you find yourself at a bridge across a narrow ravine. It is rough but steady, planks bound by rope, swaying gently with each step. You pause, feeling the subtle give beneath your feet, and it strikes you. This is what Hill means by organized action. Imagination may build the vision, but without structure, without movement, it remains a shimmering dream. The bridge is the silent, practical link between thought and reality. You think back to all the visions you have carried, some bright, some fleeting. How many of them dissolved not because they lacked worth, but because they were never given a framework. Ideas floated in your mind like unbuilt bridges, leaving you staring across a ravine with no way to cross. Hill reminds you, success is not built on inspiration alone. It demands the conversion of vision into plans and plans into steps, each aligned with purpose. You tighten your grip on the rope rail and take another step. Organized action feels like this. Not glamorous, not loud, but steady, deliberate, carrying you forward. It is the schedule that protects your goals from the erosion of procrastination. It is the plan that breaks down a mountain into climbable sections. It is the discipline to write down the next move, the courage to make the call, the persistence to follow through when no one is watching. Consider the builder of a cathedral centuries ago. He did not arrive with only inspiration in his heart. He arrived with drawings, measurements, timelines. He organized teams of artisans, stonecutters, carpenters, each with their own role. And though the cathedral took generations to complete, each brick was laid according to a plan. Without that structure, the vision would have crumbled into dust long before it touched the sky. You reflect on times when you relied on passion alone. At first, the energy was fierce, unstoppable. But without structure, without a plan, it scattered, like water spilled onto sand. Then you remember other times, when you mapped the steps, when you committed to routine. Those visions, though less dramatic in their birth, endured. They grew slowly, methodically, until one day they stood before you as reality. Hill calls organized planning the crystallization of imagination. It is the moment when dreams stop being shadows and begin to acquire weight. It requires humility, the willingness to admit you cannot hold the entire plan in your head, the discipline to put it in writing, the patience to revise when obstacles appear. It is not rigid but flexible, able to bend without breaking, like this bridge that sways yet carries you safely across. As you reach the midpoint, the ravine yawns beneath you, dark and deep. For a heartbeat, fear presses in. What if the bridge fails? What if the plan collapses? Yet you continue forward, step by step, and the ropes hold. The planks support. This, too, is the truth. Not every plan is perfect, but even imperfect plans, acted upon, carry you farther than endless dreaming. In the hush of evening, you realize something profound. Organized action is not about eliminating uncertainty. It is about creating momentum despite it. Once you begin, once the first plank is laid, the first step taken, the path becomes clearer. Success is less a single leap than a series of connected steps, bound together by persistence and direction. At last, you step off the bridge onto solid ground. The ravine lies behind you, conquered not by wishful thinking, but by the practical courage of action. You glance back once more and understand. Imagination may paint the vision, but only organized action builds the bridge that carries you into it. And with that bridge beneath your feet, you are one step closer to inhabiting the success you seek. Night gathers at the edges of the sky as you step beyond the bridge and into a hush that feels almost sacred. The trail narrows, shouldered by tall pines. Here the wind quiets, and another presence speaks, not the friendly murmur of imagination or the steady cadence of discipline, but the colder whisper you've known all your life. Fear. It doesn't leap. It lingers. It prefers the familiar. A tightening of the chest when you reach for the phone to make a bold call, a sudden fatigue when you sit to write, the tomorrow you promise yourself at midnight that dissolves by dawn. Hill names it plainly. Fear is the great paralyzer. Purpose sets your direction. Faith fuels your courage. Organized action builds your bridge, and fear waits at the first plank, suggesting delay. It rarely shouts, it bargains. Wait until you're certain. Gather more proof. Make sure no one will criticize. Choose a safer time. You know this voice. It has the accent of your past, the tone of well-meaning people who preferred you comfortable rather than courageous. It dresses up as wisdom, but its robe is woven from doubt. You pause in the dim light, a lantern of memory flickering in your hands. Hill often speaks of fear's disguises, indecision posing as prudence, procrastination masquerading as patience, perfectionism pretending to be excellence. These are not virtues. They are masks that keep you from the summit. You recall seasons when you wore them without knowing, when you told yourself you were still preparing, still researching, still waiting for the right moment. But the right moment isn't something that arrives. It's something you declare. In the hush, you hear the litany of fears that stalk human hearts. Lack, criticism, ill health, loss, aging, endings. They churn the waters of the mind until every reflection looks distorted. Hill's answer is not to deny fear, nor to shame yourself for feeling it, but to face it like a craftsman faces a knot in the wood, with attention, with tools, with patience. You name it, precisely, honestly, and by naming, you take power back. I fear they will judge me. I fear I will fail publicly. I fear this dream will cost more than I can pay. Such sentences are not admissions of defeat. They are maps showing where you must walk. There is a small stone bench beside the path, and you sit. You remember a time when fear made your world small. Perhaps you stayed quiet when your idea could have changed the room. Perhaps you underpriced your work because you feared your value. Perhaps you abandoned a project that mattered because someone raised an eyebrow. The memory tightens your lungs. Then another memory arrives, gentler but stronger, when you acted while afraid. Your voice trembled, your hands weren't steady, but you pressed on. The result wasn't perfect, but it was real. Progress, proof. The lantern glows brighter. Hill's pattern for dissolving fear is paradoxically simple. You move. Even a modest action, the smallest possible step, breaks the spell. Fear multiplies in stillness, it diminishes in motion. You draft the email. You ask for the meeting. You record the first imperfect chapter. You propose the partnership that could become a mastermind. Action clarifies. It reveals whether the monster at the end of the hallway was a shadow or a wall, and if it is a wall, where the door might be. You stand and start walking again, and with each step you practice a discipline of thought. When fear speaks in generalities, this will never work. You answer with specifics. What, precisely, might fail? Which part needs a better plan? What resources am I ignoring? When fear predicts catastrophe, you ask for evidence. Not gossip, not guesswork, real evidence. Most of the time, fear has none to offer. It retreats to the mist from which it came. Yet, Hill would not have you become reckless. Courage is not the absence of caution. It is caution aligned with purpose, not ruled by panic. You create safeguards, mentors to review your plan, milestones to check your progress, a budget that reflects reality rather than fantasy. You honor risk with readiness, and then you step, because no amount of preparation replaces the learning that only action provides. A rustle in the trees draws your eyes upward. The first stars appear, thin pinpricks in the deepening blue. You think of all the people whose gifts remained hidden because fear convinced them to keep their lights dim. The artist who never shared, the teacher who never applied, the entrepreneur who never launched. The world grows poorer when our light is dimmed, and then you think of those who trembled and still created, whose work was imperfect and still essential. Their courage did not banish fear, it simply refused to enthrone it. There is another chain fear favors: the memory of past mistakes. It replays them in high definition until you conclude that history will repeat itself. Hill's counterspell is growth. You are not the person who failed once. You are the person who learned something from that failure. You are not sentenced to yesterday. You are supplied for today. When you sort your past for lessons instead of verdicts, fear loses its most reliable ammunition. The path descends briefly into a hollow, and a thin mist curls around your ankles. Here lies the most seductive fear of all: criticism. The world's gaze can feel sharp, but Hill reminds you that criticism is often the price of visibility. It is not proof that you are wrong, only proof that you are seen. You do not need universal approval. You need alignment with your purpose and the integrity of your effort. You need a small circle committed to truth, not a crowd addicted to noise. You think of your mastermind, the traveler who joined you, the mentors you've invited, the allies you have yet to meet. With them, you practice a different rhythm. You speak fears aloud, not to magnify them, but to ventilate them. Stale air loses its power in fresh wind. You ask for accountability, not as punishment, but as protection. You let others remind you of the summit when the valley fog thickens. Together, you choose a higher sound than fear's whisper, the voice of purpose, faith, and planned action beating like a drum. And then you realize something almost tender. Fear has kept you from many errors, too. It warned you about false shortcuts, glittering distractions, predatory promises. For that, you thank it. You give fear a new job, not as sovereign, but as a sentinel. It may alert you to real danger. It may not decide your destiny. Respect without obedience. Awareness without surrender. The trees thin, revealing a wide overlook. Night has come. The valley below glows with the soft lights of distant homes. You inhale, slow and deep. In your chest, the old tremor still flickers, but it is quiet now, contained. You will not wait to feel fearless to move. You will move, and fear will learn its place. You have named the chains, tested their links, and discovered they are weaker than you imagined. They rattle, but they no longer rule. When you step back onto the trail, it's with a clarity that steadies your gait. The summit is still far, but the path is yours. The patterns hold. Purpose points. Faith fuels. Discipline carries. The mastermind surrounds. Imagination designs. Plans guide. And the great adversary, fear, yields ground each time you act. You keep walking, lantern lifted, no longer bargaining with the night, inhabiting the quiet, sovereign freedom that comes when courage becomes a habit. The night deepens, and the trail evens out across a wide plateau. The air is cooler here, tinged with pine and earth, and as you pause to rest, another truth unfolds. The paradox of service. Hill calls it one of the most vital patterns for inhabiting success, that true wealth does not come to those who clutch and hoard, but to those who give, who serve, who pour themselves into creating value for others. You think back to the world below, to the countless people who wake each morning chasing only their own gain. Their days are consumed with questions like, "What can I get? How can I take more?" And yet, many of them find themselves restless, empty, never satisfied. Contrast this with those who approach life differently, who begin with, "How can I help? How can I add? How can I leave another soul stronger than I found them?" Their lives, almost mysteriously, fill with abundance. Their reputations glow long after their footsteps fade. You sit at the edge of the plateau, gazing at the stars. Service is not charity alone, nor is it a saintly abstraction. It is practical, woven into the way you work, the way you create, the way you live. The teacher who stays a little longer after class to explain. The craftsman who pours extra care into the detail no one else will notice but everyone will feel. The leader who lifts others up rather than standing on their backs. Service is not about lessening yourself. It is about expanding yourself until your purpose embraces others. Hill insists that wealth follows service because service multiplies trust. People are drawn to those who care, who offer real value, who show up with integrity. Over time, that trust becomes reputation, reputation becomes opportunity, and opportunity becomes wealth. It is a law as reliable as gravity. What you give with sincerity circles back, sometimes through channels you could never predict. You remember moments when you served without expectation, a time you offered help quietly or gave attention to someone who needed it. Often, those moments brought a sense of fulfillment greater than any material reward, and later, sometimes unexpectedly, those seeds bore fruit. A door opened, a friend returned with help of their own. A kindness remembered became a bridge you needed. This is not coincidence. This is the pattern Hill points to. Service plants the seeds of future harvest. But service requires humility. It asks you to see beyond yourself, to recognize that success is not measured solely by your own ascent, but by the lives you touch along the way. It requires you to shift from asking, "What do I deserve?" to, "What can I contribute?" And paradoxically, when you adopt this posture, you find that life often gives you more than you imagined. Picture a candle flame lighting another. The first flame does not diminish. It grows brighter as the light multiplies. So it is with service. You do not lose by giving. You expand. Wealth in its truest form, not only material but emotional, spiritual, relational, flows toward those who ignite light in others. As the night stretches on, you hear faint sounds from the valley. Laughter, voices, the hum of human life. You imagine the countless ways each person longs for recognition, kindness, opportunity, and you realize success is not about climbing above them, but about lifting as you climb, leaving trails of light behind you. Hill's wisdom is not to despise wealth, far from it, but to remind you that wealth is healthiest, most durable when it rests upon service. You rise from the plateau's edge, feeling lighter, clearer. The mountain ahead does not seem lonelier now, because you see that your climb is not just for yourself. Each step, each effort can ripple outward. Each success can become a beacon. And perhaps that is the deepest truth of all. When you make service your compass, you find that success is not something you chase. It is something that begins to inhabit you, flowing into your life as naturally as starlight fills the night sky. Wind moves across the plateau like an unseen tide, and the first raindrops tap the earth with a patient rhythm. You pull your cloak tighter and keep walking, because there is no shelter wide enough to cover a dream. Hill's voice falls in step beside you. Purpose set your aim. Faith fueled your courage. Discipline trained your steps. But what holds you together when the sky breaks open is persistence. The storm is not the exception. It is the curriculum. The rain becomes steady. The path, once clear, dissolves into slick mud. Your boots slide. Your progress shrinks to inches. This is where many turn back, whispering that the mountain must not be meant for them. They mistake resistance for a verdict. Hill warns you against that superstition. Temporary defeat is not failure. It is information. It is the mountain asking, "How much do you want this?" A memory rises like lightning at the horizon. You once started something with fire in your chest, a venture, a study, a work of art, and for a while it soared. Praise came easily, momentum felt natural. Then a snag, a downturn, a note of criticism, and the wind left your sails. You told yourself the story was over. Only later did you notice the quiet ache that followed, the ache of quitting a few steps before the road curved out of sight. Hill names this ache with a parable. Many miners abandon the dig just feet from the vein. The lesson is not to swing blindly forever. It is to learn to read the ground better and keep swinging where it matters. You plant your staff and test the next foothold. Persistence is not stubbornness. It is intelligent endurance. You adjust your stride to the grade. You study what failed. You refine the plan without abandoning the aim. The undisciplined person throws their whole dream away when the first blueprint leaks. The persistent person patches the leak, strengthens the beams, and keeps building. Lightning veins the sky. For a breath, the mountain is lit in stark relief. Cliffs, switchbacks, a distant ridge you hadn't noticed. Insight flashes like that in the storm of effort. You see a better route, a skill you need, an alliance to form. This is another of Hill's patterns. Persistence attracts ideas that remain hidden from the casual. The act of not quitting draws counsel from the depths. You think of those who endured when logic said, "Stop." A scientist repeating an experiment through 1,000 dull failures until a single elegant success rewrote the future. A parent rising before dawn for years to build a business in the margins of a life, turning exhaustion into legacy. An athlete returning to the field after a public mistake and training in the dark until the crowd's memory was forced to change. Their victories look sudden from a distance. Up close, they are stitched from relentless days. There is ridicule in the storm, too. Voices that call from the valley, amused that you're still climbing. Criticism has teeth when you're cold and wet. But Hill reminds you that ridicule often trails the pathbreaker like a shadow. If you are building something the world has not yet seen, the world will doubt until it can touch it. Persistence teaches you to measure progress by alignment, not applause. You keep the counsel of your mastermind, those committed to truth, and you let the noise burn itself out against the rock of your purpose. The path steepens, and with it, the temptation to bargain. I'll rest a week. I'll try again next season. Maybe the summit isn't necessary. Maybe halfway will do. The mind is sly in storms. It trims your dream to match your comfort. Persistence answers with a vow that is simple, not loud. I will take the next true step. Not every step, just the next true one. You find it, you take it, then the next. This rhythm becomes a shelter of its own. Another flash reveals a side trail, a shortcut that looks almost too convenient. You hesitate. Hill would warn you here. Persistence is not chasing every path that promises ease. Many shortcuts circle you back to the start wearing different scenery. You evaluate by principle, not hunger. Does this new route honor your purpose? Does it build your capability instead of trading it? The storm is the worst time to gamble your foundation. You stay with the path that compounds strength. Your breath fogs the air. The rain slackens to a stubborn drizzle and a low cold settles in your bones. Fatigue speaks in honest tones. This is hard. You agree. Persisting isn't denial. It's decision. You accept the cost, then pay it with attention. You care for the instrument that climbs, your body, with food, rest, movement. You care for the engine, your mind, with clean inputs, purposeful reading, conversations that lift. You care for the flame, your spirit, with quiet, gratitude, prayer, or silence. Persistence isn't white-knuckled, it is sustainable. It treats you like a long game, because you are. A memory of service warms you. Faces you've helped. Work that mattered to someone beyond you. Service gives persistence a second wind, because it raises the stakes. When the climb is only for yourself, quitting is negotiable. When the climb will open a path for others, your legs find another mile. Hill's law of service and his law of persistence braid together here. The more your goal enlarges others, the sturdier your will becomes. You reach a ledge where the wind breaks. In that calm, you review the facts. What have you tried? What worked, even briefly? What failed, and why? What does the data say? Not your dread, not your pride, the data. You adjust your plan in the direction evidence points. Persistence doesn't worship the first idea. It worships the outcome that aligns with purpose. If a tactic fails, you release it. If a skill is missing, you acquire it. If a partner is wrong for the mission, you bless them and part ways. The vow remains. The method evolves. The clouds begin to thin and tatters of moonlight touch the trail. You feel a quiet relief, not because the storm obeyed you, but because you outlasted its first wave. You are different now, not merely wet and tired, but tempered. Hill would say you've banked power of will like a savings you can draw on later. The next storm will still be a storm, but some part of you will greet it with recognition instead of panic. Ahead, a cairn of stones marks the route. You place another stone on top, a small, unceremonious act, but meaningful. Each day of persistence is a marker to your future self. I was here, I kept faith, I advanced. One day, those markers will form a line that even your critics will read as inevitability. You look back once, not in regret, but in witness, and see the trail shimmering faintly where you came through rain. It would have been easy to vanish into the dark at any point, but you didn't. You kept a promise to the person you're becoming. That is the secret Hill hands you in the storm. Success bends, at last, to those who refuse to break. You face forward again. The summit is still hidden, but something better is visible. Your capacity. It is larger than you believed at the base. You feel it in your stride, hear it in your breath, sense it in the steadiness of your thoughts. The weather will change again. It always does, but the pattern holds. You do not ask for gentler seasons. You become the traveler who can cross them. And step by step, under a clearing moon, you go on. The storm has passed. The air is cool and sharp, rinsed clean, and the moonlight lays silver threads along the path ahead. You walk with quieter steps now, but each one carries a new awareness. Success is not random. It is bound by laws, invisible yet as reliable as the pull of gravity. Hill calls them the universal patterns, and if you align with them, you move forward as naturally as rivers find the sea. If you resist them, you spend your life straining against tides too vast to conquer. You pause by a stream, watching how the water bends around stones. It does not argue, does not rage. It simply flows, obeying the law of rhythm. You realize how often life moves in cycles, seasons of growth, seasons of rest, seasons of trial, seasons of harvest. When you resisted those rhythms, demanding constant progress without pause, exhaustion claimed you. When you embraced them, working with the seasons rather than against them, progress came with less strain. This, too, is a law. Timing matters. Another law reveals itself in the soil beneath your feet. Every step compacts earth that once held seeds. Some sprouted because the soil was tended. Others lay dormant where neglect prevailed. Cause and effect. The oldest law of all. Each thought planted, each action taken, each habit repeated becomes a seed. For years you may not notice the sprouting. Then one day you look around and realize your entire life is the harvest of choices you forgot you were sowing. Success, Hill insists, is no mystery when you honor this law. Plant with intention and the harvest becomes inevitable. You recall times when you ignored these patterns. Perhaps you tried to force success without preparation, expecting reward without planting. The result was frustration, sometimes bitterness, as if the world had conspired against you. Yet the truth was simpler. You had violated a law. The law was never cruel. It was consistent. And consistency can be your greatest ally once you choose alignment. Another law whispers through the memory of the storm you just endured, the law of polarity. Every setback carries within it the seed of advantage, every obstacle a hidden opportunity. At first glance, this feels naive. How could hardship contain a gift? But when you look closer, you remember. The storm built resilience you could not have acquired in calm. The criticism you once dreaded sharpened your voice. The loss you grieved taught you what mattered most. Polarity is not denial of pain. It is recognition that even pain contributes to the tapestry of success when woven with awareness. You walk on, noticing how the trail itself illustrates the law of reciprocity. The cairn you built earlier, the kindness you gave to your companion, the service you offered in moments past, these gestures are not lost. They echo back, sometimes from unexpected directions. The mountain gives to those who give to it. Life mirrors this truth. Give energy, focus, and integrity, and opportunities return. Give indifference, bitterness, or selfishness, and scarcity answers. There is also the law of vibration, subtler yet no less real. Have you not felt it in rooms where despair hung heavy, dragging you down? And have you not felt the lift of being near someone alive with purpose, whose very presence raised your own spirit? Success aligns with higher vibrations. Thoughts of clarity, gratitude, resilience. When you dwell in fear, envy, or resentment, your frequency lowers, and so do your results. Hill teaches you to guard your vibration as fiercely as your health, for both shape the reality you inhabit. You think of the mastermind again, of how collective harmony generates power greater than its parts. That, too, is a law, the law of cooperation. Nature models it everywhere. Bees pollinating flowers while feeding their hive, rivers carrying silt that enriches distant fields, forests sharing nutrients through hidden roots. Nothing thrives in isolation. To deny this law is to deny the very structure of life. To embrace it is to multiply your strength beyond measure. The mountain widens into a meadow, moonlight spilling across tall grass. You stand still, letting the hush wash over you. There is a serenity in knowing that success is not arbitrary, not a fickle favor of fate. It is governed by laws that anyone can learn, respect, and apply. And though the application requires discipline and persistence, the comfort lies in this. The universe is not capricious. It is ordered. Aligned effort bears fruit. Misaligned effort withers. You look upward, stars blazing against the velvet dark, and you sense the ultimate law. Harmony. Not harmony as soft music, but harmony as deep alignment between thought, action, and universal principles. When you live in harmony, your days feel less like struggle and more like flow. Work becomes less about forcing and more about participating. Success ceases to be a chase and becomes a natural unfolding. The meadow lies quiet as you breathe in this realization. You no longer ask, "Will I succeed?" That question dissolves, because you see now that success is not something bestowed. It is a consequence, the natural result of living in alignment with these laws. You ask instead, "Am I aligned? Am I planting with intention, persisting with patience, serving with sincerity, vibrating with clarity?" If the answer is yes, the outcome is assured in time. As you step forward, the mountain whispers through the grass at your feet and the stars above. The laws are not distant. They are written into every moment, every choice, every breath. To honor them is to inhabit success itself, long before the summit comes into view. The meadow thins, and the path begins to climb again, not with the punishing steepness of earlier switchbacks, but with a gentler, insistent rise. The night is vast and tender. A hush accompanies you, not the hush of fear, but of expectancy, as if the mountain itself knows you are nearing something that has less to do with altitude than with alignment. You walk without hurry. For once, the need to prove recedes. What you carry now is quieter than triumph and stronger than will. A sense that what you've been seeking atop the ridges has been walking beside you all along. A pale seam of light opens at the far horizon, the first hint of dawn. You adjust your pack and feel the familiar weight shift, and in that small motion the truth lands. Success is not an object to seize. It is a way of being to inhabit. For so long, you measured progress by miles, by markers, by the silhouettes of peaks yet to be reached. But Hill's pattern leads you to a different geometry. Purpose, faith, discipline, the mastermind, imagination, organized action, courage, service, persistence, and harmony with law. These were never rungs on a ladder to some glittering there. They were rooms within the house of your own life, and with each step you have been furnishing them, opening windows, letting light in. You crest a shoulder of rock and find a small sanctuary of pines circling a clear pool. The water holds the moon's last silver and the first faint gold of morning. You kneel, cupping your hands. The water is cool, startling. When it touches your lips, a current of gratitude rises from somewhere deep and unexpected. Not gratitude as performance, a list recited to earn favor, but the kind that loosens the chest and says, "I am glad to be alive in this moment." Gratitude is its own law, you realize. It tunes the heart to notice what is working, and that noticing multiplies what works. The horizon brightens, and with it a simple clarity. Outward achievement can be borrowed or even faked for a season, but inward alignment cannot. In the quiet, you see why so many who arrive still feel lost. They climbed with hurry, clutching the tokens of success, and discovered the summit offered no shelter for a divided self. The pattern Hill teaches protects you from that emptiness. It insists that the climb be honest, that your goal align with your values, your methods align with your goal, your relationships align with your methods, and your thoughts align with all of it. When alignment is present, even small progress feels nourishing. When it is absent, even great progress tastes like ash. You remember the faces that kept you moving, the companion on the trail, the mentors in your circle, the people you serve. You realize your motives have changed. At the base of the mountain, you wanted proof. Somewhere along the switchbacks, you wanted mastery. Here, approaching dawn, you want contribution. The shift is not cosmetic, it is structural. Contribution enlarges your container. The moment your aim includes the good of others, the summit within opens more space for you to grow into. The breeze freshens. You walk again, steadier, and your attention returns to the ordinary. How the strap sits on your shoulder, how your breath finds an easy cadence, how your thoughts arrive and leave without pulling you under. This is the state you once expected the summit to grant you, a feeling of sufficiency. Not complacency, but enoughness. You keep your aim clear and your pace intentional, and yet you are not racing. The paradox is sweet. You move faster without rushing when you are at peace. On a rise, you stop. The first sun spills into the world like a promise delivered. Peaks once harsh become softened with gold. Shadows find their edges and retreat. The pool behind you mirrors the expanding light, and the pines unscroll quiet prayers in their needles. It would be easy to name this the climax, to take in the view and declare the journey complete. But the mountain offers a subtler lesson. Dawn is not an ending. It is a renewal of the covenant you have been making with yourself on every step. To live in a pattern that matches the life you say you want. You breathe and allow a different litany to arise. Not a list of goals, but a texture of being. You will keep showing up when no one watches, because discipline is now part of your identity. You will keep believing before the evidence crowds in, because faith has proven itself an honest engine. You will keep inviting voices wiser than yours to shape your path, because the mastermind has saved you from narrowness. You will keep designing with imagination and building with plans, because vision without craft is a promise broken. You will keep honoring fear as a sentinel and not a sovereign, because courage is a practice, not a mood. You will keep serving because it enlarges your joy, and persisting because it lengthens your reach. You will keep aligning thought, word, and deed with the laws that hold you even when you forget them. For an instant, you picture the faces who will benefit from your next true step. The clients, students, customers, readers, patients, neighbors who will be lifted by the thing you are making, or the presence you are offering. It's a constellation of unknowns, and it humbles you. This widening of impact accompanied by a deepening of peace, is the summit within. Success ceases to be a prize and reveals itself as stewardship. You sit on the war-meaning rock and consider the day ahead. There will be emails and doubts, logistics and obstacles, errands and fatigue. There will also be 1,000 small doors where alignment can enter, a word spoken cleanly instead of cleverly, a boundary set without drama, a plan reviewed and adjusted without self-attack, a moment of gratitude before you choose, a pause to ask, what serves best here? These are not grand gestures, but they are the stitches that hold the pattern in place. When you attend to them, you inhabit success before any ledger records it. A hawk lifts from the tree line and rides a thermal upward, not fighting the air but partnering with it. That is the feeling that spreads through you now, not command over life, but communion with it. You will strive, yes, because creation asks for effort. But the grind is gone. In its place is devotion. Devotion to the work, to the people, to the laws that shaped you on this path. Devotion to becoming the kind of person whose results are the echo of their character. The sun clears the horizon. The world brightens. You shoulder your pack with an ease that surprises you and take another step, then another. There is no trumpet, no confetti, no crowd. There is only a clear road, a steady heart, and the quiet certainty that you are no longer chasing success. You are wearing it. In the way you think, in the way you speak, in the way you decide, act, give, and rest. And as you walk on, the mountain settles behind you, not as a conquered thing, but as a teacher you will return to again and again. Because this is the final truth Hill wanted you to taste. The summit within is not a height you hold. It is a state you renew. Each dawn you choose the pattern. Each day you inhabit it. And in that inhabiting, your life becomes what you once only imagined. Not louder, not flashier, but truer, steadier, and suffused with a purpose that glows from the inside out, from the inside out, from the inside out, from the inside out, from the inside out. Good morning, my friend. Tonight, I invite you to settle in, breathe deeply, and open yourself to a journey that is far more than a mere retelling of words on paper. This is a journey into the secret architecture of success. Not the shallow glitter of wealth or applause, but the deep, enduring kind of success that reshapes your soul and carries you forward through every storm. At the heart of this book lies a simple yet profound question. What patterns, what invisible threads, determine whether a life soars or falters? If you find this summary helpful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to BookSnap, and comment below the title of the book you'd like us to summarize next. We'll make it happen soon. Now, imagine it is dawn, and you stand at the threshold of a day that could change your life. The sky is washed in soft hues of pink and gold, as if the world itself whispers of new beginnings. Yet within you, a restless unease stirs. Perhaps you've asked yourself the same question countless times before. Why do some rise while others remain tethered to mediocrity? You've seen people who seem to have less talent, fewer resources, even less opportunity than you, yet they climbed higher, shone brighter, and carved a path that others followed. What secret did they know? Napoleon Hill suggests that success is not an accident, not a matter of chance bestowed by a generous universe. It is patterned, as deliberate and reliable as the rise of the sun. And so you begin to watch more closely the way successful people carry themselves, how their decisions align with a certain inner rhythm, how their lives unfold like a design traced in advance. These are the patterns for inhabiting success, and they wait for you to recognize and step into them. The first pattern begins with awareness. You can feel it like a shift in the air when you awaken to the idea that life does not just happen to you. You happen to it. Too often we drift through the days as if they were accidents, reacting instead of creating, chasing shadows instead of defining our light. Hill asks you to stop and hold the question steady. What is success for you? Not for your neighbor, not for your parents, not for society, but for you. The innermost vision of what a fulfilled life would mean. This question alone unsettles you. It presses against excuses you've carried for years. It strips away the comfortable fog of someday. Because once you name what you seek, once you allow yourself to see the contours of your mountain, you cannot return to wandering the valleys. That clarity is dangerous and liberating. It burns away illusions, demanding honesty. As dawn shifts into morning, you walk through memory, recalling times when you stood on the edge of possibility. A job you might have taken, a risk you might have embraced, a word you left unspoken. Each moment whispers of what might have been. Yet, as regret brushes by, Hill's voice cuts through. Success is never behind you, always ahead. What matters is not the chances missed, but the pattern you choose to live now. There is comfort in this truth. Life's patterns are not reserved for the gifted few. They are available to all who are willing to learn and apply them. They are not locked in hidden vaults. They are written in the very fabric of human effort. And as you listen, you begin to realize you too can trace these threads, align your days with them, and create a life of meaning, abundance, and dignity. Think of it as standing before a loom. Threads stretch in every direction, some tangled, some taut, some frayed by the past. At first, the picture is chaotic, but once you understand the design, once you know which strands to pull and how to weave them together, the chaos resolves into a tapestry. That tapestry is your life, and Hill's teachings offer you the patterns that transform scattered threads into enduring art. But the loom does not weave itself. You must place your hands upon it. You must choose which threads will shape your destiny. Faith or fear, clarity or confusion, persistence or resignation. This moment, right here, is your invitation to step out of drift and into design. And so, the dawn of your journey begins. Before you lies a road, unmarked yet filled with possibility. As you take your first step, you feel it, the stirring of a new resolve, the faint but certain rhythm of success waiting to be inhabited. It is not loud, not flashy, but steady, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. And as you walk forward, you realize the journey is not about discovering something entirely new, but about remembering what has always been true. Success has a pattern, and that pattern can be lived, starting now. The morning light sharpens, and with it, the clarity of what Hill calls definiteness of purpose. You pause at the edge of a quiet path, the air crisp, the ground beneath your feet still damp with dew. The world seems to lean in, waiting for your answer to one question. What do you want most? Not in vague whispers, not in the endless some days, but in the kind of burning clarity that shapes the marrow of your days. You think of how most people drift. They wake, work, eat, sleep, and wake again, circling like ships without a compass. They desire comfort, wealth, recognition, but their wanting is as formless as smoke. They set out in one direction only to abandon it for another at the first obstacle. And so years pass, their lives written in sand, washed away by tides they never sought to command. But the successful, they choose differently. They take the swirling fog of wishes and press it into a single flame, a definite purpose. Imagine an archer in a dense forest. Without a target, every arrow is wasted energy, each shot vanishing into the trees. But once a target is fixed, the archer draws with focus, his eye steady, every motion aligned with the mark. So it is with life. Purpose is the target. Without it, you can live decades and never arrive anywhere. With it, every act, no matter how small, bends toward the mark. You recall a time in your own life when you drifted, when decisions were made not by choice but by circumstance. Perhaps it was a job you took because it was offered, not because it called to your spirit. Perhaps it was staying in a place because leaving seemed harder than moving. The memory stings because it reveals how easy it is to confuse movement with direction. And yet, even in those moments, there was a faint inner voice whispering that something more was possible if only you chose it with conviction. Hill urges you to name that conviction. Write it, Speak it, see it each day until it becomes not just a wish but the axis upon which your life turns. This definiteness of purpose does not merely guide decisions, it reshapes your identity. Suddenly, you are no longer someone who tries this or that. You are a builder of one chosen destiny. Your habits, your circle, your time, your energy, all begin to bend toward that single star. The world itself seems to respond differently when you live this way. Doors open where walls once stood. Allies appear, drawn by the magnetism of your clarity. Even difficulties, those relentless storms, take on a new character. No longer random assaults, but necessary tests, each sharpening your focus, each forcing you to align more deeply with the goal. Picture yourself walking a mountain trail. To your left, mist rolls over the valley, obscuring the path of those who wander aimlessly. But your eyes are fixed on a peak piercing through the clouds. It is distant, almost impossibly high, but it is there. Every step you take, every choice you make, is measured by that peak. You know the climb will be grueling, but you also know this. Without a summit, every step would be meaningless. Hill's pattern here is uncompromising. Success is not for those who scatter their strength across dozens of half-formed desires. It belongs to those who gather their energy into one direction, one purpose, and who let that purpose guide them like a compass. When you hold that clarity, you cease to live reactively. You live intentionally, and intention transforms not only your results but your very sense of who you are. The day stretches before you now, brighter, fuller, richer, and though you have not yet arrived at the peak, you feel its pull. You feel how the very act of choosing, of fixing your heart and mind on a definite purpose, begins to redraw the map of your life. This is the pattern of all who have built lasting success. They knew what they sought, and because they knew, they refused to be distracted by the trivial, the fleeting, the shallow. The wind shifts, carrying with it a sense of momentum. You step forward, aware now that the first stone on the path of success has been laid beneath your feet. It is the stone of purpose, firm and unyielding, pointing you toward the summit you have chosen. And as you walk, the realization grows clearer. Life bends toward those who know where they are going. The air warms as the day unfolds, and you sense another truth rising within you. Purpose alone, however definite, is not enough. To carry you up the mountain, to sustain you through valleys and storms, you need something deeper, the invisible engine called faith. Not the kind of faith that sits passively, hoping for miracles, but the active, deliberate belief that what you seek is already moving toward you, even when the evidence around you whispers doubt. You pause at a stream cutting across the path. Its waters are clear, alive, tumbling over stones as if no obstacle could slow them. Faith feels like that, a flow that persists despite rocks in its way, a force that refuses to stop simply because resistance appears. Hill reminds you that faith is not gifted at birth, nor is it a fleeting feeling that visits the lucky. It is cultivated, strengthened, chosen. Every time you hold a thought of possibility against the weight of fear, you build it. Every time you step forward when logic tells you to retreat, you deepen it. Think of the countless dreams abandoned because fear won. The writer who never began the book because she doubted anyone would read it. The entrepreneur who shelved an idea because others scoffed. The young student who longed for more but believed too little in his own worth. Each carried within them the seed of greatness, but without faith, the soil remained barren. And then there are those who dared to believe. A woman starting with nothing but conviction, building a business brick by brick. A leader who saw possibility where others saw ruin, rallying people into a movement. An inventor mocked for his foolish contraptions, yet pressing on until the world called him a genius. Their stories are not accidents. They are proof of what faith does when joined to purpose. You remember a moment in your own life when the ground seemed uncertain. Perhaps it was the first time you stepped into a role you felt unprepared for, or the moment you confessed a dream to someone who laughed. That sting of ridicule, that tremor of fear. You felt them both. And yet somewhere within, a voice rose up. Go anyway. That whisper was faith. Small, fragile maybe, but alive. And if you followed it, you discovered that each step forward was met with strength you didn't know you had, opportunities you couldn't have foreseen. Faith transforms purpose into power. It takes the picture in your mind, that summit glimmering in the distance, and convinces your heart that you can reach it, even when your body aches, even when the path disappears into fog. Faith keeps your eyes on the peak when storms obscure the view. It insists that your purpose is not fantasy, but future. Imagine carrying a lantern through a dark forest. The light doesn't reveal the entire path, only a few steps ahead. Yet you move forward, step after step, trusting that the light will be enough. That is how faith works. It does not remove uncertainty, but it allows you to act in spite of it. Without it, you remain frozen at the forest's edge, waiting for daylight that never comes. With it, you discover that each step forward makes the path visible, each act of trust building momentum until the way becomes clear. Hill's teaching is sharp. Faith is not just belief in yourself, but belief in the principle that the universe bends toward those who dare. It is an attitude, a vibration, a way of inhabiting your own life that draws unseen forces into alignment. When you believe with persistence, you begin to attract allies, ideas, and circumstances that seem almost magical in their timing. What skeptics call luck is often nothing more than faith at work, shaping the invisible into the visible. As you cross the stream, your reflection glimmers on the surface. You see the person you have been, hesitant, cautious, waiting for guarantees. But then, just for a moment, another image overlays the water. The person you could become, walking with quiet conviction, certain not because the way is easy, but because the way is yours. That is the face of faith. The path rises again, leading you deeper into the journey. You feel the rhythm of your steps quicken, not because the terrain is smoother, but because something within you has shifted. You are no longer walking on hope alone. You are carried forward by a current stronger than doubt, stronger than fear, a current born of the choice to believe before you see. By midday the sun is high, its steady heat pressing down, reminding you of another truth Napoleon Hill insists upon. No purpose, no faith, can hold its shape without discipline. The world is filled with brilliant dreams, with radiant sparks of inspiration, yet so few are brought to completion. Why? Because inspiration without discipline is a firework, dazzling for a moment, then gone, leaving only smoke. Success, Hill says, belongs to those who master themselves, who bend their impulses to the service of their purpose. You pause at a stretch of the trail where the incline steepens. The mountain demands more now. Steadier steps, stronger breath, greater patience. This is what discipline feels like. It is the choice to keep walking when rest would be easier. It is the decision to rise at dawn when your body pleads for sleep. It is the refusal to be seduced by distraction, to give up the long term for the fleeting comfort of the moment. Think of a musician, fingers raw, playing scales again and again until beauty flows without effort. Think of an athlete, body aching, training long after the crowds have gone home. Think of a leader resisting the temptation to compromise principles for quick gain, instead holding fast to integrity. Discipline is not glamorous. It is quiet, often unseen, but it is the rhythm beneath every masterpiece, the steady drumbeat that carries dreams from vision into form. You remember the times discipline failed you, the diets abandoned after a week, the journals left half-written, the projects started with fire and left unfinished in the cold of discouragement. Each memory reminds you of the cost of undisciplined living, the erosion of confidence, the silent regret of potential wasted. And yet, you also remember the rare moments when you persisted, when you chose the harder path and stayed with it. Those moments stand like monuments, proving that you are capable of so much more when discipline becomes your companion. Hill speaks of discipline not as a punishment, but as a liberation. Without it, you are a prisoner of whims, tossed about by moods, habits, and temptations. With it, you become sovereign of yourself. Discipline creates freedom because it frees you from the tyranny of impulse. It allows you to direct your energy consistently toward what matters, instead of scattering it across every passing distraction. Picture a river. Without banks, its waters spill and stagnate, becoming a swamp. But with banks, the river gains direction and force, carving valleys, turning mills, bringing life wherever it flows. Discipline is those banks, not restricting your purpose but channeling it into power. The journey through discipline is not easy. You will face mornings when your purpose feels distant, when faith falters, when the weight of effort tempts you to quit. But Hill reminds you, every act of discipline strengthens the muscle of persistence, and persistence is the golden thread through which success is woven. Each time you resist giving up, you stretch the boundaries of what you can endure. Each time you choose long-term gain over short-term ease, you write a new line in the story of your strength. And discipline is not merely about work. It is also about the inner life. Disciplining your thoughts, refusing to dwell on fear, jealousy, or resentment. To inhabit success, you must train the mind to serve the vision, to guard against the erosion of negative emotions that sap your will. It is a lifelong practice, but every day you do it, the mind becomes sharper, steadier, clearer. The trail beneath your feet now winds upward into a series of switchbacks, each turn demanding patience. You feel sweat gather, muscles ache, yet you keep moving. There is no rush, no sudden leap, only steady progress. This, too, is discipline. Showing up, step after step, until distance is conquered not by speed but by endurance. As the sun begins to tilt westward, casting long shadows, you realize something profound. Discipline is not a cage, it is a key. It unlocks the higher levels of your own potential, levels hidden from those who give in to ease. It sharpens purpose, strengthens faith, and lays the foundation for everything that follows. Without it, success remains a dream. With it, success becomes inevitable. Not because the path is easy, but because you have chosen to walk it, one deliberate step at a time. The light softens as afternoon settles in, and with it comes another revelation. You cannot and will not climb this mountain alone. Hill calls it the Mastermind principle, the hidden architecture of alliances, the weaving together of minds and spirits to create a power greater than any single person could summon. You've seen hints of it before. How one conversation sparks an idea that changes everything. How a friend's encouragement at the right moment lifts you when you were ready to quit. How entire movements begin not with one voice but with a chorus. You pause at a clearing where two paths meet. A traveler approaches from the other side, carrying a pack, eyes weary but bright. You fall into step together, and the climb feels lighter. The weight on your shoulders shifts. The silence becomes companionship. This is the essence of the mastermind, not merely partnership, but synergy, a union of strength, perspective, and energy that multiplies your own. Hill observed that behind every towering achievement stands not one genius, but a circle of collaboration. The inventors who revolutionized industries had financiers who believed in them, mentors who guided them, teams who refined their visions. Leaders who altered history did not stand on podiums alone. They were lifted by those who shared their vision, who whispered courage in the shadows when doubt threatened to consume them. Think of the contrast. A lone climber battling fatigue, every decision a burden, every mistake magnified. Now picture a team bound together by trust. One watches the trail while another carries the supplies. One lends strength on the steepest slopes while another keeps the fire burning at camp. The journey does not become easier, but it becomes possible. You reflect on your own life, the times when isolation felt like a badge of honor, as if doing it all yourself proved your worth. Yet in those seasons, how heavy the burden became, how narrow your vision. And then you remember the rare, luminous times when you let others in. The late-night conversation that gave you clarity. The mentor whose single insight shifted the course of your choices. The friend whose unwavering belief in you became the anchor in your storm. Those moments remind you, greatness is never solitary. The Mastermind principle is more than networking or casual friendship. It is the deliberate creation of a shared field of energy where ideas collide and expand, where accountability sharpens resolve, where encouragement fuels persistence. It is the recognition that when two or more minds harmonize in a spirit of faith and purpose, they tap into something larger than themselves. A collective intelligence, a reservoir of power that no single person could access alone. Hill insists that success requires this architecture because human strength is finite, but combined strength is expansive. Alone, your vision may falter under the weight of doubt. Together, vision is reinforced, nourished, protected. Alone, you may see only one angle of a problem. Together, the blind spots vanish as different eyes reveal hidden paths. Alone, your energy may wane. Together, the rhythm of shared persistence carries you farther than you dreamed possible. The clearing fades behind you as the path narrows again, but you no longer walk in silence. The traveler at your side shares stories, laughter, wisdom. Each word adds strength to your steps. And you understand something vital. The mastermind is not simply about what you receive, but also about what you give. Success flows when you bring your best self to the circle, your encouragement, your honesty, your unique gift. In giving, you strengthen the bond, and the bond strengthens you in return. The sky deepens into amber, shadows stretching long, and you feel the quiet truth settle. If you are to inhabit success, you must build bridges of trust and collaboration. No one ever reached the summit by standing alone on the first stone. Each great life has been woven with the threads of many others, each pattern of success stitched together by a mastermind. As you and your companion continue upward, you no longer see the climb as solitary. The mountain itself seems to nod in approval, whispering through the wind. Together, you are stronger than you ever dreamed alone. The sun drifts lower, its golden rays casting long streaks of light through the trees, and you feel another current stirring within you. Imagination. Not the idle kind that drifts into daydreams and then dissolves, but the living, deliberate imagination Hill describes as the workshop of the mind. Here, unseen blueprints take form. Here, the future is constructed long before it is built with brick and stone. You pause along the trail where a wide rock juts out, offering a view across the valley. Below, scattered villages and winding rivers stretch into the distance. None of them existed without imagination first. Every home began as a sketch in someone's mind. Every bridge was once a daring thought. What if we could cross here? Every tool, every invention, every system we take for granted now was born in the inner theater of imagination before it ever touched the world. Hill urges you to treat imagination not as a child's plaything, but as the architect of destiny. He reminds you that two kinds exist: synthetic imagination, which rearranges old ideas into new combinations, and creative imagination, which draws directly from the well of inspiration, that mysterious stream of insight which seems to come from beyond. Both are powerful, both necessary. Together, they weave possibilities that logic alone could never conceive. Think of history's turning points. The Wright brothers staring into the sky, imagining a machine that could soar like a bird. Edison staring at the darkness, imagining a bulb that could hold sunlight within glass. Each of these dreams was ridiculed, dismissed, labeled impossible. And yet imagination pressed on, carving a path through mockery until the impossible became ordinary. And you, too, have felt glimpses of this workshop within. Perhaps it was the moment you pictured a life different from the one you were living. Perhaps it was an idea that arrived in the quiet of night, unbidden, yet vivid, carrying with it a sense of urgency. The question is not whether imagination speaks to you. It always does. The question is whether you will honor it, capture it, act upon it. You remember times when you dismissed your own visions. You told yourself they were foolish, unrealistic, too ambitious. And with every dismissal, the inner architect grew quieter. But tonight, as the light glows across the valley, you sense the truth. The imagination does not fade because it is weak. It fades because it has been ignored. Feed it with attention, and it awakens again. Hill is clear. Imagination must be disciplined, not left to wander aimlessly. It is not enough to dream. You must shape those dreams, mold them into practical plans, and tie them to your definite purpose. The great builders of history were not mere dreamers. They were dreamers who became doers. Their visions sharpened into blueprints. Their blueprints translated into action. Picture yourself unrolling a scroll across a wooden table. Upon it lies the outline of your future, the business you wish to build, the book you wish to write, the legacy you wish to leave. At first, the lines are faint, tentative, but as you trace them, they grow darker, clearer, until you see the structure of a life you are capable of creating. That act of tracing is imagination at work, shaping mist into form. The path continues upward, and in the distance, you see the summit bathed in light, though still far away. For a moment, you imagine yourself standing there, arms lifted, the world stretched below in quiet awe. That image sends a surge of strength through you. Though you are not yet there, the vision itself propels you forward. This is the genius of imagination. It lets you inhabit the future in advance, and in doing so, it gives you the will to build it. As the day leans into evening, you carry with you a truth too often overlooked. Reality is not fixed. It is clay, pliable, waiting for the sculptor of imagination. The question is not whether the clay exists. It always does. The question is whether you will place your hands upon it, whether you will dare to shape it into something worthy of your deepest purpose, your deepest purpose, your deepest purpose, your deepest purpose.